Hello everyone, my name is Punit. I am a co-founder of Incubate and thank you for joining us on the second day of Ask Me Anything on GitHub externship. So we have Mr. Gopal. Mr. Gopal is from Surya Software Systems Private Limited. Hi Gopal, welcome to the
Hi,
show.
Puneet. Hi, everyone. Thank you.
And Surya Software Systems Private Limited is a company who builds a suite of market leading projects in the domain of financial risk management and balance sheet management that is primarily used by the financial institutions like banks and hedge funds. Surya also builds digital products and helps companies with their digital transformation. Our client, Surya Software System Private Limited, clients are based in India, USA, Europe, Africa, and Middle East. So, thank you, Gopal, for joining us on this segment.
My
So,
pleasure.
Gopal,
Hi, everyone.
so we have students, we have developers from across India who are going to be part of the relationship. They have so many questions regarding the organization, how they can work with you, what are the things they will learn in the new course. Apart from that, uh, first of all, my question is what about you and about your organization? What does it do?
Yeah, so let me start by talking a bit about Surya and what we do and that sort of thing. So, as you said earlier, we're a 20-plus-year-old company. We were founded by a very early employee of Infosys, Mr. D.N. Prahlad, and he started Surya with the intention of building a software product company in India, which at the time was quite uncommon, let's say. And that today has become our bread and butter, and we build a series of market leading financial risk management products. And as well, we also run a consultancy wing that we call Surya Digital. And the focus of Surya Digital is to build digital products for various companies across the world. So that's kind of what we do at a 100-foot level. And in terms of the kinds of technology areas we dabble in, it's kind of all over the place. Anything interesting, more or less, we have our hands in it. And that's largely because the philosophy that we operate under is to say, we look at the problems that we are looking at, we look at the context that we find ourselves in, and work towards that context and to the problems we have, rather than necessarily approaching it from the standpoint of, I know how to use XYZ, so let me just find only problems that look like XYZ, or take any problem I get and hammer it until it looks like XYZ, right? So we're a company that we've dabbled in various technology stacks. So we have right from the Microsoft world all the way to things like Rust, where it's completely we're one of the earliest adopters of Rust, and a lot of our code is written in Rust. We were also one of the earliest adopters of Swift for iOS development, and even on the server side to some extent. So yeah, all over the place, with the intention of saying, we want to be at the cutting edge and do the right thing for the people that we work with, depending on the context we find ourselves in.
Great to know more about your company. It's really a grateful grateful to have you as a part of this GitHub extension. And there is a project from your side. Like I just wanted to
Mhm.
understand more about the project. Like what is
Mhm.
the project all about, and what is the scope of this project? What are the
Sure.
things that students will learn in the due course of 3 months internship
Sure.
with you?
Sure. Yeah. So the project is effectively to build a version of Amazon Ion in Swift, right? So let me give a little bit of background, because it's not maybe something that everyone thinks about every day, unlike me. So if you think about modern software, right, more or less one thing that any meaningful software does today is it sends data over a network, right? Could be, for example, if you open your phone and you're using WhatsApp or whatever, you're sending data over the network. Even if you're building server-side distributed systems, you're sending data over the network constantly. Now, one of the key elements of that stack is what do you actually format the network data as, right? So, for example, a lot of people use JSON, right? So if you want to make an HTTP API call, or you want to send some data over a socket or a web socket or something, JSON is kind of a de facto standard, so to speak, in a lot of cases. And JSON is really nice from the point of view of it's simple, it's easy to write a parser, and it's very debuggable. Right? Anybody can just look at it, read it, understand it, etc. But the problem with JSON is it's also very inefficient from several standpoints. One, it's very slow to parse and write. Okay. The second part of it also is it can also result in the payload size. So if you want to say this is a message and I'm trying to send it across, the overhead of the JSON format itself is non-trivial, right? And it really starts to show in cases where, for example, you want to send binary data, like say an image. The only way to send an image in JSON is you base 64 encode it or something, increase the size 30-40%, and then send it. So there are a lot of alternatives to things like JSON that are out there that are binary in nature. One of which very popularly used by Google is protocol buffers and so on. One more such format is Amazon Ion, and we like Amazon Ion for a couple of reasons. One, unlike something like protocol buffers, it has a way to send data both in binary and text, right? So when you go to production, you leave it in binary mode where the debugging is a mess. But when you're running on your local machine or whatever, you leave it in text, and it's very easy to figure out what's going on, right? And it's kind of a superset of JSON, so people are already used to dealing with it. The second thing is in the binary mode, it's really fast. It's one of the fastest we have profiled. The C implementation and Java implementation of Amazon Ion are much faster than anything else we have seen in terms of the amount of time it takes to encode and decode a payload. And similarly, in terms of the size of the payload, while it's not the absolute best, it's pretty close. Right? It's pretty close to as much as you can achieve. So the idea was we really want to use Amazon Ion as much as we can, and we do in a few cases. But one of the holes that we found is there isn't an implementation of Amazon Ion that works natively in Swift. So if you're an iOS developer and you want to use Amazon Ion to communicate between a server and your iOS app, you can't really use it today. And what we're hoping to do with this project is make that possible going forward, right? So at a very high level, that's kind of what the scope of the project is. I'm happy to get into the details of, what exactly does that involve, what are the steps, etc. if you'd like me to.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for giving us a gist of the project that is at the GitHub Extension. So now we have Kaushik along with us. Like Kaushik here is doing a job of students advocate. Like he'll ask some questions and we will ask some questions from him, like how the students think, because he also go through several this kind of initiative before. So he might have lots of questions for us and for you, Gopal, especially, like how the students think. And because students, they just have started their career, or they are just about to start their career, and this is the first step in their life. So they are pretty confused at this stage. When I was in my engineering, I am also pretty confused, like what other skills should I pursue and what should I not. So I always stuck at HTML and CSS. So from there, I'm not able to take it further. So that's why we came up with this initiative with GitHub, and that's where we have a great organizations like yourself. So welcome, Kaushik, to the show.
Thanks, Puneet. Thanks for the intro. And once again, thanks, Gopal, for joining it. So,
My pleasure.
So Kaushik, just a question from you. So what, like, proposal for us, like proposal in front of every student, it's like a submission of their third year and end semester proposal to their respective faculties. It's a very, tough things to deal with. But in this case, what is the proposals looks like for you?
so for me as a student, so I've also done Google Summer of Code back in 2019. So for me, proposal, what a mentor or a organization looks forward to as a proposal is how quality does the proposal have. So in quality, there are three standards which need to be followed, whether it is the tech stack that the student has opted for, because since it is an open source, you can always diverge from the tech stack, but it's always important that you keep and maintain the tech stack that is being built. Never build something out of way of the structure. Never propose something which is another headache for the organization to maintain. That is one important thing. The other factor for me is that the first informative look. So, as a resume is for when you are applying for a new job. Similarly, over here for externship, for any such events where you are being assessed for a long period, your proposal is the first point of contact to your mentors. So, once they will have a brief idea of what you have in yourself, they will assess you through that. So, that's the first point that they will be going through. Now, for me, if I had to build a proposal, I'll keep every detail, every minute detail. So if you have a girlfriend, you put in every single point, every minute detail, you pay attention to it. Similarly, I'll just pay every single attention to it, because whether it is a tech stack, how long the proposal should be, whether I'd be able to do it, because you should not never say that, okay, I'll be doing this, I'll be doing that, I'll build an AI of my own in next 45 days. You promise it to the mentor and you are not able to deliver it, then it goes the other way around. So be realistic. That's my first point, and then we can get into the parts of the proposal. So this is what the proposal is for me.
Great, great. Thank you for giving us suitable information how the proposal should look like. Gopal, the same questions for you, but in a different manner, because you are coming from an organization standpoint. What are the things that you are looking for?
Look, it's not that we're necessarily looking for a checklist of things, right? Because the problem with having a checklist of things is if I give you a checklist, I will get that checklist and not much else. So the idea is, first thing I want to say is, because a lot of students in college, everything is a game of you trying to, outsmart the interviewer, outsmart your college professors, exams or whatever. First step, forget all that. It's not a game. There's no end, there's no winner or loser here, right? We're all just trying to learn from each other. So the most important thing for me is to be genuine, right? This isn't some sort of me trying to outsmart you or you trying to outsmart me kind of situation. So get that out of your mind. It's not a zero-sum game, right? What I would ideally like to see, not only in this proposal, but any such collaborative effort, is the most important question: why? Why this caught your attention? Why do you want to do this? Or you or your team, whoever, why is this important to you, right? Like, why is this something you want to spend 3 months of your life doing, right? The next one that is important is to provide some amount of context, right? So what is your story? What have you been through? What life experiences have you had that makes you feel that you are a good fit for this sort of setup or this particular problem or whatever it may be, right? For the context at hand. So as long as you can be genuine about those things and right from your heart, that's really all I'm sort of looking for. So there's no sort of specific format, etc. My only request is keep it short, because frankly, if you write 44 pages, I'm not going to read it. So try to keep it within a page or page and a half at most. And as Mark Twain said, or at least I think he said it, I don't know if he actually said it, that I didn't have time, so I wrote a wrong rambling letter, right? So take the time, make sure you write well, keep it concise. The usual things, as Kaushik pointed out, please pay attention to detail. If your proposal is littered with spelling errors and grammatical mistakes and all that, not only me, no one will take you seriously. So please pay attention to detail, get the small things right. But the real most important thing is, keep in mind, it's not a zero-sum game, and it's more important to be genuine than to sort of look at it as a game to play.
Right. So as per you, Gopal, genuinity is the one of the most priority parameter. And apart from that, students are very happy from the fact, like you have said, them you don't need the proposal to be in like a long formatted. You are okay with 2-3 pager resume setup formatted.
One page is fine. One page is fine. I mean, this is one of those things that I've even with resumes, since that was brought up, somehow in recent years I've seen this thing where people who are just coming out of college have 5-page resumes, and I'm always like, what the hell do you have? What have you done to write 5 pages about? Where if you look at someone like Jeff Bezos' resume, probably that will be 1 page. So the point is to get to what you want to say quickly, say what is relevant, and then move on, right? Like, no one really has the patience to sit and read reams and reams of paper which is just full of fluff, right? So get to the point, say what you want to say, and don't waste your time and don't waste time of those around you.
Absolutely, that's a great thing, great point that you have made. So the next question that I have got from the audience and from the developers is, what are the things and how do you envisage the scope of this project during the externship? Like, if I'm going to spare 3 months with you, what are the things that I learn, both from the technical perspective and from the leadership perspective as well?
Yeah, so the whole idea of this sort of model of engagement is to give you a realistic expectation of how software gets built for professional purposes, not for amateur purposes, right? So, one of the things that is a big difference between a college assignment versus real world software, right? Anybody can make things work if everything works fine, right? Where the hard work comes in is when something doesn't work the way you want. How do you handle that? Whether you do that gracefully or do you not, right? So this is where the idea is to give you a realistic representation of what a project looks like. It's something that gets put into use in production. So that's one. So if you want to build software that stands the test of time, right, where if the whatever you start could go on for 5, 10 years and outlive probably even your interest in the software, you sort of have to. I've always been taught that you go in this way. First, you get a prototype running, right? Step one is to say, let's make some headway so we start to understand the problem clearly. Because inevitably, no matter how much anticipation you do, how much thinking you do ahead of time, this is a contact sport, right? You're only going to take the beatings once you start to do something. You'll realize, oh wait, there are 17 things I never knew that we have to deal with, right? Ask any software developer who's been in this game long enough, they'll tell you the same thing. So first is to get something going where some very small part of it is up and running. Then the next objective is to get it to work completely, right? So this is where, for example, you'll start writing tests and you'll make sure that under all these weird scenarios that you will never ever have thought about, as this is just something that comes to mind day to day, you have to get really good at handling all of those scenarios, right? Getting a very robust test suite in place, making sure you can run those tests frequently, that you don't create regressions, etc. Once you have that, my view, the best part of the engineering challenge comes here, which is to make it fast, right? It's quite easy to write software that, yeah, these days everybody has 8-core machines, 44-core machines on the server and whatnot. It's very tempting to say, yeah, it's fine, chalta hai, everything is okay. We'll use 44 GB of RAM, and we don't care about CPU use and all that. But a lot of fun comes in saying, okay, this thing is right now running with 20% CPU and 100 megabytes of RAM. Can we make that 2 megabytes of RAM and 1% of CPU, right? So that part of it is where you can really start to make a difference, because it's very, very, very hard to get that right. And that's where a lot of the fun comes into it for me, is in trying to eke that last bit out of something. Whether you need it or not, it's just an intellectually fun exercise to go down that journey.
Right.
So that's sort of the process that we look to follow. And I've always found that when you try to build something you want real users to use for real, you have to sort of go through this process.
So also we have a question: what are the core technical expectations from the candidates for this project?
So the real big one here is, it really helps if you're already comfortable in Swift, right? Because if you're trying to write a serialization library in Swift and you don't know Swift, it's not that you can't do it, it's just that you will struggle quite a lot, because Swift is not a trivial language to learn, and you're going to be delving in some of the less known parts of the language, right? For example, a lot of generics comes into play. You'll have to get very deep into the codable, decodable stack and so on. And performance, as I said, is a big deal here as well. So it means that you need to understand how you can eke more out of the language and the runtime than just obvious things. So if you have good knowledge of Swift, that will definitely help. If you don't, look to see if you can do a quick crash course or something, where you learn the core features of the language as quickly as you possibly can before you get into the project itself, right? Outside of that, the rest of it you'll sort of figure out. Again, also helps if you understand some C, because you'll be reading a lot of C code, because we're going to be basing this on the C implementation that's already there. So if you don't know how to read C, that could be a bit of a problem. But the nice thing about C, unlike Swift, is it's actually a fairly simple language. And as long as you don't have to write it, reading it is relatively straightforward. Writing C is another matter, but reading C is relatively straightforward.
Right. Thank you. So, Kaushik, now the questions comes to you. So, what are the key pointers, like if you would like to apply for the Surya software systems, right? What are the three things that you will cover in a one pager?
Okay, that would definitely help me as well as a lot of students who are figuring this out. So first of all, if I have to apply in Surya software, the pre-proposal thing that I'd be doing is that I'll go through their entire organization. I'd be looking for their projects online. I'd be searching what this organization does. And then if my objective and thinkings align with them, I'll definitely write a short one or two liner why I want to contribute to them. Why is it that it is important for me? And then if I've gone through the project, I'll be having certain things in my mind. Okay, this is where, if I have gone through the project pretty precisely, I'd be knowing that, okay, this is where you could be improving. Or else, if the project is just going to start, I'd be coming up with certain points. So I'd be coming up with, okay, we could have these features and to implement, because anyone could say that if I'm building a food delivery app, there should be certain features so that it is being delivered and I could track, but people do not know how that tracking is done. So if you are adding in a feature, do keep it in mind that you add the exact points, that how you would be adding those features, what would be the procedure that you'd be following. And I think that would be sufficient for, and Gopal can obviously add because he is the one who would be evaluating. So for me,
Also,
this is what I'd be putting in.
also, do you think that if anyone can find any bugs into the system, so it's a brownie point for them of
Yeah,
getting selected?
definitely. Yeah, definitely it is, because you only find a bug when you are precisely through the software. You have gone through it, you have gone through the infrastructure, then only you can find a bug. So definitely it's a plus point because it says that, okay, you have gone through the project and you know the ins and out of it. So definitely it will be a plus point.
Unfortunately, you won't find any bugs here,
Yeah.
and the reason because there's no actual software yet. So
Yeah.
the only bug-free software is the one which does not exist. So I guess I've got you beat there.
Yeah.
So
But
another
another advantage with soft projects which are beginning is that you could just put in your ideas, and who knows that your idea may just click up with the mentor or the organization and then you are selected. So always just put in your best over there.
Okay. So the next question is like, students have might have their colleges and might they are having the another internship during the time. So how many hours per week do you envisaging, Gopal? I mean, like if I'm a student, I would like to apply at your organization. Like how many time should I need to give to work with you?
It's a nearly impossible question to answer. See, I have never been a believer in counting the number of hours. It's as silly as counting productivity of a software engineer by number of lines of code, right? The way I see it is, I like to work with people who are motivated, who have a purpose to what they're doing, and they're doing it for some reason, right? And when this sort of situation arises, I've never once in my life had to tell someone, hey, you're not working enough hours, or you're working too many hours, right? I tend to look at what are the outcomes, what is happening at the end of the day, what are our objectives being met or not, and all of that. What happens behind the scenes is up to each individual, each person. I expect to have them, most of the people here will be over the age of 18. They're all adults. You have to be responsible for what you choose to do with your life. So I'm not one who's ever put any limitations one way or the other on how, who works when, where, whatever. My objectives will be to look at the outcomes, not to say, oh, you need to put 6 hours or 4 hours or 18 hours or whatever it is. Personally, I'm someone who's always believed in hard work, right? So you'll find me that working pretty much any opportunity I get, because like many of those around me, we're here to make a difference.
Right. That's a really beautiful thing that you have narrated right now. So instead of putting down the number of hours in a project, you just need to put the passion and your ideation. So quickly, Gopal, what are the tips or the tricks or the some magical ideas you just wanted to throw to the people who are watching us right now, so they can get a one step ahead from now?
There's only one. Outwork your competition. That's it. I've never found there to be any shortcuts in that are worth taking for any purpose. For those of you who have watched cricket, I've always been a lifelong fan of Rahul Dravid, where he may not have been maybe the most talented person on the team, but always found that he worked his way to whatever rewards came his way. So I've always believed that the only edge anyone can have is either you're born with something other people are not, which is in terms of circumstances and luck, which we don't control. The only thing you do control is how much effort you're willing to put and get things done. So that's it. Work hard, you'll get there. This is the only advice I have for anybody.
Awesome. That's really great. Also, we also recognized Rahul Dravid from his recent advertisement with Cred, the angry young man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether y'all are from Bangalore, but I would believe that Indiranagar traffic could do that to even Mr. Rahul Dravid. It's unfortunate because when I grew up in the city in my younger days, Indiranagar was a lazy, very chilled out residential neighborhood. And now, if someone asks me to go there, I'm like, sorry, no thanks.
So, yeah. So it's now, yeah, they will also, the students who are working under it, they will also see some angry faces, the angry thing from your side as well.
Hopefully not. It's fortunately I'm nowhere near Indiranagar, so hopefully not.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gopal, for your time, for your support, for
My
giving us.
pleasure. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Kaushik, and look forward to hearing from the folks who will be applying.
Yeah, so we'll have more questions, and there is a Slack channel wherein you are the member of the group. So the students will ask the questions from now onwards. So thank you for joining.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was a great time with Gopal from Surya Software Systems. And now we have a special guest with us, Mr. Peter Harrison from the Palisados Foundation.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Peter.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, pretty well.
Oh,
How
good.
are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So thank you for joining us at the third session of Ask Me Anything at GitHub Externship. So there are lots of questions from the students, and we are going to give you, I mean, so many questions to answers here as well as on the Slack channel as well.
Okay.
So before I start, I just wanted to take you through about the profile of Peter and about the organization. Like, he's a president at the Palisados Foundation. It's an open source project support community groups organize their daily activities. A significant proportion of Palisados Foundation software contributions came from the university students studying software engineering. Participants often from underserved communities or the geographical areas. So it's a great opportunity for the students who are standing right now. And this GitHub externship is also for the same. Like this is for the third year, or a pre-final year students are taking part into it. So thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
So Peter, my first question is, request if you can tell me more about yourself and then about the organizations you are working for.
Yes, thanks a lot. So in my day job, I'm a co-founder of a startup in Silicon Valley. We are a data center that specializes in meeting the needs of clients that want to have a supercomputer or some sort of artificial intelligence type application. When they generally tend to find that the public cloud gets too expensive, they will come to us. And we have managed to compete very well in Silicon Valley as a result. a number of years ago, I decided to try and see how I could give back to the community in general, the engineering community. And I got in contact with a number of fellow Jamaicans, and we started doing outreach to the universities on the island of Jamaica. And we approached students trying to find out what they would like, and they wanted to have something that was very similar to the Google Summer of Code, in which students work on open source projects related to general types of activities, and then from there get paid a stipend and etc. And the Jamaican environment is different from the United States environment, and so we wanted to find ways in which we could get sponsorship. And so we went to Jamaican companies, and they provided it. And we launched a number of open source projects. One of them, which is Talawa, and so for those who may not know, Talawa is a mobile app which allows community organizations to get themselves organized and keep in contact with their membership. So it has some social media type features, such as creating events, news channel, groups, chats, things like that. And then also trying to get information on other aspects, like the characteristics of the membership, what talents they may have. So for example, if you are a part of a sports club, you may want to know who are the good spin bowlers, you may want to know who are the good fast bowlers, those sorts of things, just in case you are lacking somebody at a crucial moment. And then we also have things like keeping track of various types of facilities that you may have at an organization. So for example, if you are a community center, you may have a room that may need to be booked, and that would be something that you could keep track of. So we try to make it be something that would really help with communities in general. And one of the things that we've discovered is that there are many open source projects that are out there, but many of them are very engineering focused, in which, for example, there's Memcached, which is very focused on making sure that you have access in memory caches to very large objects. But that is not something that inspires a lot of people when you talk about it. But when you talk about something that is more accessible, like what we're doing, the community organization thing, it allows people to identify with it very closely. And community leaders themselves can be in a position where they can encourage their own membership to get involved in software development for the benefit of the community itself. Because if you contribute to Talawa as a project, you will indirectly be benefiting the community overall. And one of the things that we're trying to do with the project in itself is to keep in mind that many of the people that will be using this may not have access to a complete education. And so we need to make sure that we have something that is very graphical, has a very intuitive user interface. Instead of using a lot of words, try to see how we can use more icons. Instead of doing a lot of typing, it needs to support audio or video, those sorts of things, to make sure that people understand what's going on. And so we're trying to keep that in mind. One of the things that is going back and forth in some of the chat channels that we have is that we want to figure out ways in which we can securely add people to organizations in the event that they don't have an email address, because many people don't. And so we try to figure out how we can do that as part of the feature set. Now, for the students who may want to learn more about the project and what we're doing, I would suggest that you check out our documentation. Go to github.com/Palisados Foundation. And there you will see links to the various repositories. Each repository has a link to the documentation. And there you will also find information on our YouTube channel, our Slack channels. You'll also find information about contributing, etc. We have a very active community at the moment. I think it has the type of thing that we're doing has inspired enough people to really want us to extend and expand as well. And one of the things that I'd recommend the students do is that they look at our YouTube channel as well, in which you'll see the progression of Talawa over the years. The first students that were working on it were from Jamaica, and they got the proof of concept product out and available. And one of the things that we would like to figure out is to try and see how we can expand upon it. So for those who may not know, the languages that we are using at the moment are Flutter for the mobile app. For the API, one of the things that we are looking for people with knowledge of Node.js, MongoDB, and most of the interaction with the API is through GraphQL. And then for the administration portal that we have behind the scenes so that we can manage multiple organizations, because we want to make this into some sort of a cloud application that runs on React. So I see a question here: how much knowledge about given languages or libraries are required to contribute to the projects? I'm assuming I can answer those questions directly. Is that the case? Well, I'm just going to go ahead and do it without asking permission. So
Yes.
It's for you.
all right. So that really depends. I mean, that's a very, very broad question. And if you are new to the various types of languages, what I would suggest is to bite off very small pieces to start with. There are opportunities to do refactoring if you want to try and figure out what the code base is like. We're doing a lot of refactoring. Write tests to try and see how that could be helpful for us, because we need to make sure that the code is stable. Historically, we've had stability issues. Most of those stability issues have gone away over the last month or so, but we really do need to make sure that we have automated testing as a part of it. And so step yourself into the projects slowly and then see how you can expand upon them. And what I would suggest also is that you join our Slack channels, the GitHub externship website that we have really does outline what you can do in order to get involved with what we're trying to achieve. Open issues, take a look at the issues that we have on the various repositories, open an issue, request that the GitHub externship label gets put on your issue, and make sure that the issue is approved by one of the mentors. And that's very important. And the reason why we do it this way, you may feel that this is a way of adding a little bit too much administration into the whole process. But what we've seen in the past is that we've seen people coming in, and we've had dozens and dozens of pull requests going in without any thought as to whether these issues are in keeping with the overall strategy of the project. And therefore we've had competing types of ideas, and that has been very difficult for us to manage. And so what we've tried to do now is that when you create an issue, all issues are automatically unapproved with an unapproved label, and that encourages people who are doing the issues to try and get in contact with somebody in the project, one of the contributors, to ask them whether this is okay and in keeping with the strategy, and then from there we move on. So please, as much as you can, try and follow that procedure. Each of the repositories has a contributing.md. I think that will provide you with a lot of information as to what to do, how to do it, and how to be accepted. Generally speaking, the community that we have is not a combative community. We are the culture of the community is inviting, and so you won't find people saying, "Well, that's a stupid idea. Why are you here doing work? If you're not a coder, go and play somewhere else." We're not that type of organization. We understand as the basis and the start of this project was from Jamaica. Now, Jamaica, under no circumstance, is viewed as a powerhouse in software engineering or software development. But Jamaica decided to do this on their own. And so therefore, we recognize that we may not necessarily have all the ideas, and we want to be, as much as possible, taking in the requests and thoughts of other people from other countries that have similar challenges in a developing nation sense, or maybe even a developing region sense, to try and see how we can come to a common conclusion. Now, the project that we're trying to do, we want to make sure that it expands beyond the island. You will notice that most of the mentors are from Jamaica because of the fact that the project started in Jamaica. But that doesn't mean that we won't want other people to join in. We have no pride when it comes to asking for help. And anyone that wants to be a part of the project permanently after the summer, we will gladly welcome them in. So I hope that has answered the question. I probably spoke too long, but I think that really does give a good general overview as to what the question was asking.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives us a sense like about what are the prior knowledge that is required for this to put a proposal on the thing. Apart from that, like if a student is applying for externship at Palisados, what are the things that he or she can do in the next 3 months? What are the things that they will learn from there? And how big is the community from there they can also interact with?
Oh, yeah. So the community, let's see, I believe most of our repos have almost 100 forks already. So there's a fairly active grouping of people. I would think that on any given day, there are about 3 or 4 pull requests that are open. And so I would think that there's about 20 active contributors doing work at any one given moment in time at the moment on all the repositories. So there's a lot of activity going on. And so that should give you an idea as to the degree of activity. Has that answered the question? I may have digressed a little. Was that okay?
Yeah, it was completely fine.
Okay.
So, as a student, there are a lot of questions that come in to you in some way or the other. Is that what should my proposal consist of? So, what should I do? What should I prepare? Whether I should go into the details, I should define that I'd be doing this, or what exactly should be there in my proposal?
Right. So the documentation that we have online really outlines all the things that you should have. It talks about what your background is, the idea that you have in general. I would suggest that you, rather than specifically looking at our ideas and saying, I'm going to do the idea that we have there, I would really strongly encourage students to take a look at it and see how you can expand upon the idea and make it be more interesting. So in the past, we've had ideas about improving the UI UX for the mobile app. And people have said that they just want to do that. Well, we want to know exactly what does that mean. It's beyond just the colors and just the general screen layout. What we want to find out from people is how can you make the UI UX be easy for somebody who may have had only about 4 or 5 years of education, and make sure that that is useful for them. And so what things are you going to do to make sure that that experience is okay? And so the experience is not just the fact that the screens are laid out in a particular way, but most people may not be wanting to type. And so therefore they may want to be using audio, they may want to be using video. How is that user experience going to be achieved? And the user experience is also going to be considering things like what compression algorithms are you going to be using for the video so that you have good response times when the clips are downloaded? Are you going to resize the images for that? What sort of surrounding features are you going to be making such that the experience is very, very good? And how are you going to minimize the amount of storage that is going to be used? What encryption and encoding mechanisms are you going to be using? Are those encoding mechanisms ones that are universally accepted by the community or by people in general? So those are the types of things that you need to be taking into consideration. A UI and a UX is not just the look. It is all the supporting stuff. How many images are you going to be using? Are they going to be PNGs? Are they going to be JPEGs? Why are you using PNGs versus JPEGs? Those sorts of questions need to be thought through. Similarly, if you want to be coming, if you take a look at the calendaring system that we have, there are features that you may want to add. I say, well, I want to make improvements to the calendar system. Well, we have to start asking the questions, what exactly are you meaning? And when you write about the modifications, think about a very broad consumer base. And so there may be people that may not know how to read. There may be people whose eyesight is poor. So what things can be done to improve the size of objects on the screen so that it's easy for people to use? How are you going to make that work? If you're going to be using icons, are they going to be universally acceptable for people around the world? We've spoken, we have a design guide on our website, which talks about the types of colors that we want to be using. And one of the things that we have learned over time is that in different countries, different colors mean different things. And so therefore, what red in one country, for example, in China, means good luck. Red in the United States means communism. And so therefore, which color are you going to be using? And how are you going to be keeping those things in mind as a part of the design process? So those are the types of things that are important. Those are the types of things that there's a question here, what types of things impress us? Those are the types of things, the idea, the quality of thought that has gone into making the proposal. And so just saying that I want to do this is not going to be enough. We want to see a description of what that might mean and how that's going to impact things. Things like storage, for example, because I'm just going to talk about storage because I want to focus on one particular example. Storage has a very meaningful impact on the design of a software platform, because once you start talking about storage, you now need to be thinking about the total amount of storage. How much does that storage cost? How is that storage going to be replicated? Do you have a replication mechanism? How is that going to work? Those sorts of things need to be like really deeply think through what that means. And so many times you may feel that doing the project or the thing that you're doing doesn't necessarily have to be broad. What we're looking for is think a little narrower and think deeply about what you want to do. Because one of the things that we have seen is that when you start talking about something that is very broad, it covers so many things that other people are working on that there may be conflicts. And so therefore, if you can narrow it down and look at something that can be very beneficial to the project overall, that is very helpful. I would also encourage all the students to take a look at our YouTube channel. There's a video specifically for the GitHub externship, which outlines the projects, the background of the foundation, the challenges that we have, and also the types of things that we're looking for in a student. We have mentioned in our video that we're looking for the best students, and we have a slide in that presentation, and I think the presentation is also in the GitHub externship documentation that we have on our site, which talks about what exactly is the best. And the best students aren't necessarily the ones that have the best code. Sometimes the best means that they collaborate better. Sometimes the best means that they're mature enough to actually turn up for meetings, that they listen to suggestions about why things should work or may not work, that they're mature enough to take constructive criticism, that they are mature enough to actually be willing to share some of the rewards in order for the greater good of the project. So I'll give you an example. We try as many times to look at issues that are created and ask students to split them up into smaller issues with a parent issue so that other students can work upon it and get to the final goal faster. And if a student is willing to do that, that shows that they're willing to get towards the common goal. And that's a maturity that we need for the final goal. And that's really important. I mean, especially with a project like this one, in which, for example, I'm talking about in Jamaica, many people don't have a lot of time. They have families, they work, they have a full-time job, they're doing some amount of coding for what we're trying to do. And so therefore, doing one massive issue is not suitable. Sometimes it's better to split them up into smaller pieces and ask others with more time to work on them. And so those are the types of things that I think students should be looking towards. I'm just going to see if I can find anything else, because this is something that comes up from time to time. And let me just take a look here. Right, so I'm looking at the actual presentation that I had given in that video. So we want the good ideas, we want meaningful pull requests. Supervision needs to be lightweight. If a student is continuously interrupting the mentors throughout the day, throughout the week, that's not ideal for us. We want students to think it through, set up a uniform schedule with their mentors to try and work on stuff. We want to make sure that they have some amount of knowledge of the framework that we're using, that the readability is very good. You know, the readability is a big part of it, because we have to also take into consideration whether other people will be able to read your code. We also want to make sure that whatever documentation you have in the code, or maybe related documentation, is correct, and that you can meet deadlines. And many of these sorts of characteristics can be seen if you as a student start participating in the projects, start looking at products, looking at issues, saying, I found a bug, I'd like to fix this bug, or I've noticed that this particular feature could be a little better if we made the flow a little different. So that would really be something that we could work with. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely it helps. So as a student, let's say I'm submitting a proposal for Talawa. So what is that one unique thing that will sparkle and almost ascertain my position as an intern, or for the next step, I would say, in which I'll be getting to interact with the mentors directly? What is that one thing that should be there in the proposal?
The one thing that should be there in the proposal. I've never really thought about that, because we've always thought that it's a good overall package. That's something that we really want to achieve. What I would really suggest to the students in terms of trying to figure out what we want or what should be there is we have a number of very important goals for the end of the summer. And we really do need to make sure that we can achieve them. One of them is that we need to be able to have Talawa be launched in some way as a cloud service. And so therefore, we need to find out ways in which that could be done, in which there could be security, in which ways in which there could be, it could be done easily, the way that it could be used as a standalone service without going cloud very easily. Those sorts of things are important. And as the project is also being geared towards nonprofit organizations and community organizations, there needs to be a way in which the organizations can easily accept donations, that they can and that they can be used with a payment processor of some sort. That's going to be important. And we also need to make sure over and over and over again that the project can be viable and attractive to these sorts of community organizations. So what we really do, the key thing is to make sure that your proposals will make the Talawa project be irresistible to a community organization. And now think of all the community organizations that you can think of where you live. It could be a religious organization, a temple, a mosque, or whatever it may be. It could be a community. It could be a sports club. It could be a community center. It could be just a general club. It could be various other things. And try and think of what are the features that would make your organization or the organization that you're thinking of want to use this. So for example, if you went to the leader of this organization in your neighborhood and say, hey, look, I'm working on this thing. Is this something that you'd be interested in? That is what we want to be looking for. That is the key, because just creating features in a vacuum is not going to be helpful to us. And so therefore, in your proposal, it would be good for you to say, you know, I've spoken to people, they think that this is a good reason, a good feature, and this is why it could work. I've shown Talaba to people in my community. They feel that it's good, but it's not quite good enough. These are the things that I think they would want to see as well. So do a little bit of market research in your own community and use that to help you with the guide. So don't just look at the ideas that we have, look at the ideas that come from your own surveys of people to try and figure out what that could be, because they may come up with ideas that you had no idea about, that you would have said, whoa, I would have never thought that as being something that would be important, but ultimately it is. So really, really try and think of what that could be. And that would be very helpful. And I don't think it would take too much time. We've seen ideas come out of sessions that have been maybe an hour or too long. And you have the weekend coming up, so I actively encourage you, load up the software, show it to people. What do you think? Let's try and figure out how we can come up with a decent proposal and make that work. So in a nutshell, do the market research, talk to people, and use that as justification for the ideas that you have. Because the ideas that you have may not necessarily be what people really want. And the only way to prove that is to do a little bit of groundwork. Because software developers are software developers, engineers are engineers. They're different from the actual people who are using it. And so a cool feature such as icons that move and wiggle may not be the type of feature that somebody may want in the real world. So the fact that you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. And we want to make sure that the code is very, very stripped down so that it is easy to understand, fast to load, and has all the features of good, solid, reliable software. We want to trim the features down to the absolute what is absolutely necessary as much as possible. Use the resources that you have to try and figure out what necessities are there and what necessities are required.
So thanks, Peter. You have explained each and every bit, which a student should know to just submit a proposal. So if you have anything that you want to put up to the students or any final words, we can just go ahead with that. And then I do have a couple of announcements for the students to be made, and then we can just wrap up the session.
Oh, sure. The one thing that I would recommend is join the community, try and be a part of it, and try and be a part of the inclusive community that we've tried to create. That's going to be important. Be fearless in trying to ask questions. The community generally really does try to welcome people. And so if you have any apprehensions whatsoever, don't have them. And if you feel that you're being, that you feel a little shy, don't bother, just do it. Many of the people have been in the situation that you have been in. And we started the whole program to for Talaba to make sure that students could have access to quality education, and this is a part of it. And we're hoping that through this, your communities that you work with or that you live in will be better. And just jump in and see what you can do. I'm on the Slack channel as well. You can talk to me. Generally speaking, I try to direct people to other students, but I can at least direct people to what needs to be done. So I think that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks a lot for joining in.
All right, you're welcome.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure hosting you. So with this, we have come to the wrap of the day. We will be getting to know a few things. First of all, about the structure. A few of the students were asking what the structure is, how it should be done, and what is the current stage that we are in. So to answer those all, we are currently in the application phase, wherein the last date of application submission, that is how do you submit the proposal, where to submit the proposal, it is 21st of May. So I request everyone to kindly to proceed with proposal creation and submit it at the earliest, because then we'll be going on to the shortlisting phase. So just to give a brief about what this entire event would look forward, we will be closing the applications on 21st, and then the shortlisting period would be there, wherein we would be finalizing according to the organization's need. As per the organization basis, we'll be finalizing couple of students, let's say 20 or 50 odd students, which number is not yet defined. It would be defined totally by the organizations. Then we'll be having a 2 weeks long mentor-mentee interaction period, wherein the mentors can the mentees, that is the students, can interact, have their queries resolved directly through the mentors, have their questions asked, explain their proposal, what to do, what not to do, explain in detail what they would be doing if they are selected in the next 3 months. And then the final shortlist would be announced, wherein the students would move ahead to the final stage, and they would be continue to work with the organization of their choice for the next 3 months. Few couple of do's and don'ts. Please do not submit multiple applications. You are requested to only submit one proposal to the organization, and not more than that. You should not submit multiple proposals to multiple organizations. This is it. If you have any queries, reach out to us on our Slack channel. That would be great, and we'd always be there to help you. With this, we'll be wrapping up. Tomorrow, we'll be having ZV Incorporation. We'll be having Zenetics Software, as well as we'll be having with us a third organization, that is Fizzle, which would the mentors from all these 3 organizations would be joining us at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So stay tuned and see you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. And if you haven't joined the Slack channel, please do join it ASAP. Thanks.